All right, hello, Patreon contributors. This is spoiler talk for the book Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins. Joining us for this very special review is one of your co-contributors, Jesse Lawrence, who is contributing at the level that allows him to choose a review for the podcast, and he chose this book. So, if you haven't already, and I can't imagine you haven't, check out the regular episode. And right now we're going to dig into some of the dirty details we couldn't talk about. So what do you got, guys? Livius, gut it.
I touched on this in the regular episode. Alabar and Kudra's story is wonderful. And I understand we probably need something to ground it in the today, but there's just so many characters and so many storylines that just lead nowhere. They're just unimportant. And quite honestly, uninspired from a guy who puts a lot of thought. The great parts of this book are so great, but then I can't wrap my mind around the choices to include some of the characters.
No, I completely get what you were saying, and I don't want to like drag it out and make it take forever, but I want to dissect that a little bit because this book is unique. I mean, the print copy I have is 342 pages. So, I mean, that's a general estimate about what any other copy will be. It's a larger, one of those like trade papers, so it's the larger one. But so it's under 400 pages, and the book spans thousands and thousands of years. And I totally agree. It's really dense reading, but it is basically a short novel. So it's pretty astounding that he can cover that span of time with even that few of characters and whatnot, where I feel like other authors like telling a story that stretched over 1,000 years would be probably more like the
Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah, the unedited version of The Stand, to say the least.
I have a thought about like some of the characters, like you're saying, didn't necessarily contribute to the story. Because we're in spoiler talk, we can kind of expand on ideas a little bit. So Bingo Pajama only shows up maybe a few times, right? The entire thing like actually appears a few more times, is referenced. So a very, very small character, seemingly unnecessary, right?
Right.
But plays a very important role toward the end of the book, when it gets super philosophical about how scent has to do with, our fucking floral brain and all the weird, like spiritual, like living a long time and all this stuff. And he's important because he creates the jasmine, whatever, oil, whatever it is. He does the jasmine.
He grows the flowers that they use.
Right.
And it's them, yeah.
But it's a superior, it's implied that he is a craftsman and that he really cares about and really does like an excellent job of whatever he does with the jasmine, which is like a key ingredient in, obviously many perfumes, but specifically, what is it called? K23 Kudra.
Yep. K23.
So what I'm getting at is, he played the part of, essentially for the whole book, he was the jasmine supplier for our New Orleans perfumers. And that was it. But he was kind of a quirky character because he had a fucking head full of bees.
Yeah, a very unexplained head full of bees, by the way. I kept waiting for there to be something. And why those bees?
Well, the bees are for the flowers, which Huxley Ann wanted to grow. And since Huxley Ann someone else has to grow the jasmine after Bingo Pajama dies, that's probably why he was in the book along with his bees.
See, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think he was an actual like personification of the evolution that was hinted at, the evolution of the brain and like our spirit and everything having to do with scent. He basically represented what was put forth in this weird philosophy actually is possible. So he was proof positive, and Huxley Ann became like the heir apparent to that because she was basically this like plant prodigy girl. And she was exposed to the right different group of weird philosophies to make her ready to be basically at the level that Bingo Pajama was. But he was very important because he basically proved the point of a combination of Marcel and not Alabar. No, yeah, Marcel and Wiggs Danny Boy. Like they were the two that had the weird, like they were the ones, the modern people who had the weird philosophies about, you know, how scent had to do with everything and our floral brain and all the fucking living forever shit. So he was actually a really important character in a very subtle way, is the way that I see it. Mm-hmm. Same with Huxley Ann. She seemed pretty unnecessary, but she plays into the whole like immortality flower shit.
I'm gonna go a little different route. I don't know what I mean. I remember 1983 vaguely. I was 11 years old, but the fact that he's killed and that like a type of like racial protest is sparked in New Orleans over it kind of hit home today, many years later. And again, at 11, I wasn't really clued into things like the news. But I don't know if that was something that was happening frequently in that time. But there was some interesting stuff there that, again, I don't think lent anything to this particular story. Mm-hmm. But some of that stuff felt very real and felt no different, written 34 years ago than it felt, I don't know, a week or two ago when the last time I watched something on the news about, the police killing somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Does have a timelessness to it.
Yeah, again, I don't know that it added anything to this. It didn't, for me, add anything to this particular story. But yeah, Wolfgang Morgenstern, I mentioned during the thing too, another one who, other than tying him to Priscilla's ex-husband at the very end, really served little to no purpose to me. I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of just really superfluous kind of shit happening in this book.
Yeah, and I think that they're like I don't even know what the right word would be, but they're more, they're less actual people characters and more like the example of something is kind of how because I got really
I could see that.
Yeah, my brain got really roiling with all that shit at the end, and I was like, it all makes sense, and then I went to sleep, and so it's all kind of half there. So it got really, really philosophical at the end, but like overall. The idea that like if you boil it down to like its essence, that might have been a Perfume reference. I'm not sure.
If you distill it,
if you distill it down, really, basically what the book is kind of saying, but kind of not, because it kind of backs away from it in a way, is like if you want to live forever, you got to breathe a certain way, you got to fuck a lot. What are the other elements to it? Breathing and
hot
fucking
water. Eat some beets,
taking baths,
taking baths,
taking lots of baths, and eating beets, wearing perfume.
Well, and some of that stuff is it is based in reality. So I know that there is a subset of people who go to like spas, and they believe this is excellent for their health, is they will go and sit in the hot water for whatever certain amount of time, but then will very quickly move to ice cold water, which I'm sure is the exact same thing Alabar was getting at in this book.
Yep.
Minus the cold water, where they would just go sit in the shade to rapidly cool their blood. Breathing, there's a lot of stuff out there on breathing properly and how that works for your health, and if not your health, at least stress levels.
Do you have like YouTube channels for that too?
I do not have YouTube channels for that. But I know that stuff exists, so I'm not really sure how much I was buying into the living forever kind of through these things. But I did find it fascinating that he examined, just kind of life itself, even just how we choose to live our lives based on the relative outcome.
Yeah, and one of the great things was how like, part of it was like, dude, if you take shit too seriously, if you're if you like, religion doesn't necessarily equate to a good life, and trying to deprive yourself of too many things or like put yourself through too many hardships is not necessarily equate to a good life. So it was kind of neat how like dude, chill, but also like, yeah, you got to do some like good shit too. It was very much middle of the road. Middle of the road.
Yep. I don't know that I have a whole lot else to. Huh?
Anything spoily?
I mean, we could talk about the end. I mean, I think the end was okay. I was a little confused though, and maybe you guys can straighten me out. I did finish this book 1 hour before I sat down at this.
So it should be freshest in your mind,
right? Yeah. But Alabar had decided on Thanksgiving, on Easter, whatever, on right after Mardi Gras, that he was going to disappear again. What was it called? He was going to not
dematerialize.
Yeah, but Kudra came back.
Right, but this is the whole thing: is that Kudra came back moments before the French guy was leaving to go to the airport to pick up his cousin.
Yeah,
and Danny Boy.
And Alabar,
which was a little confusing to me on.
No, because Alabar decided that he was going to dematerialize in the place that Kudra dematerialized. Because it would give him.
That's what I missed.
Yeah,
okay,
because it was going to give him a better chance of meeting back up with her.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Then I must have just glazed over that part where, yeah,
and it's neat because like back in the Alabar timeline when they were in France and they had their place and they did the dematerialization, it was hinted at. It actually was straight out said that the Lefebvre family had already established themselves right there where they were. So you knew even like when they were back there originally, when she dematerialized, you knew that the family had a tie to that street. And it just happened that hundreds of years later they meet back up by chance.
Yeah, well, they bought the monastery or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see, anything else spoilerish? Yeah, so I thought it ended okay with the two of them being reunited. They were easily my favorite characters in the book. I guess I'll talk about this here. Robbins does a weird thing. Like he doesn't shy away from sex, which I don't know that it really fit in the whole scope of the book. He does it in an in-your-face way that still manages to not be pornographic, though.
Oh, I could contest that.
Okay, all right, I'm listening.
I kind of get what Livius is saying, though.
Dude, in like the first like page and a half, Alma gnashed her semen-greased teeth in her sleep.
Yeah, I know, but okay. So yes, that's what I'm saying. It's super in your face, but there's nothing about that sentence that's actually pornographic.
Well, it was definitely super in her face.
Well, yeah, all right.
I mean, well, yeah. Semen's a more clinical term, right? So that's part of that equation. But also, like, I totally get what Livius is saying, because I feel like Tom Robbins is very, very explicit with sexuality in one sense, but he brings the mysticism to it. He brings, the love, the mysticism, the romanticism, all these like it's completely sacred and almost religious to him. So it's full of magic and sometimes full of clinical terms all combined. So it's not like it's titillating as it's just a part of the like universal human experience.
Well, I can get behind that too. Here's the best way I can frame my particular thought on it is that I'm going to use Jesse's work, say it's great. He's explicit and it still manages to be a PG rating.
Sure. I think that's probably going to wrap up our spoiler talk. We got pretty deep. We got deep into thoughts here, unless anybody's got any kind of final thoughts.
Nope, I'm good.
No, nothing spoilery.
Thanks for being a Patreon contributor. Hope you enjoyed this spoiler talk. We're going to head back over and debate the rating for this book. And hopefully we'll see you next. Maybe we'll have spoiler talk for the next book. Maybe.
Hoping so.